Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Tuesday. Honestly, it feels like the Etihad game was just like there, and now suddenly it's just Luton all the way. Mikel Arteta has just been speaking ahead of that game against Luton tomorrow night at the Emirates. So we'll go over what he has had to say, the latest on injuries. He's been talking about Bukayo Saka, Gabriel, Martinelli, giving an update on Jurrien Timber as well. He's been discussing William Saliba and Gabriel's partnership. It's a partnership that's certainly been in the headlines following that fantastic display, defensive display up at the Etihad on Sunday. So look is what he's had to say about that. Got some questions and comments from you guys as well. So plenty to discuss. Also, tomorrow's show, obviously going to be a preview of the match. If you want to get involved in that in terms of who you want to see starting that game, you know, what decisions you think Mikel Arteta should make. I think rotation is going to be a big sort of talking point in the build up to the game. Mikel's been speaking about that in today's press conference. I thought we'd save some of those comments for tomorrow's show and have a big discussion over the kind of importance and the value of rotating some players right now, because some big games coming up, and how Mikel Arteta manages his squad is going to be so crucial. Can you afford to make, you know, wholesale changes for Luton, a team that, yes, for all the defeats they've suffered this season, are always right in the game, always seem to be losing very late, just as they did at the weekend when they travelled to Tottenham and lost 2-1. We've seen Arsenal have to wait until the 97th minute to beat them this season. So couldn't you really afford to change too many faces in sort of for one game, sort of looking too far ahead in terms of the games against Brighton and Bayern? Or is Luton, you know, do you just have to go strong? I'd love to get your thoughts on it for the discussion in tomorrow's show. So once you've seen this, once you listen to it and you want to get involved in that, you know what to do. Go into the comments below. Let me know your thoughts in terms of how Mikel Arteta should approach that game. Right, let's get started, shall we? We'll start with the injury updates on Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Martinelli from Mikel Arteta today. Now, Bukayo Saka, of course, limped off in the second half of that game against Manchester City. He'd been away with England during the international break, had come home early without playing any games after being seen by the medical staff there because of an injury that he arrived to the training camp with. It was a bit of a gamble, I would say, by Mikel Arteta to play him. I can understand why he did, because of who it was and how important the game was, but I don't think it was a gamble that really worked, because Bukayo Saka didn't look anywhere near fit in that game against Manchester City, and then obviously limped off with a lot of discomfort. Mikel saying after the game it was more down to fatigue, but we shall wait and see. This is what he had to say today on his fitness. He said he's fine. We haven't trained, just recovered. We'll have a short session today to prepare for the game, and we'll see if he's in the best condition to start or not. He's then asked on whether it was a good opportunity to rest Saka with so many big games to come. Obviously, Brighton at the weekend and then Bayern Munich coming up. And he says, we're just thinking about Luton and to prepare in the best possible way to beat them and earn the right to beat them. I mean, personally, I think it would be pretty mad to start Bukayo Saka, given how he looked anyway when he came off against Manchester City, and given how he played as well. He was clearly carrying something. It was so obvious just watching him, and the way he was walking, the way he was running, that he was really being hampered by something. And that was just a couple of days ago. So I can't imagine he's going to be any sort of shape to play, or certainly not in the best shape to play. And, you know, if you've got a squad and you've got quality players, and Arsenal do have quality players, you do have to use them. And I think this is the perfect time to give Saka a rest with those games coming up against Brighton, and certainly the game against Bayern Munich next week coming up. You've got to give some players, you've got to rotate a little bit, in my view, and this is a perfect opportunity, whether it be you play Gabriel Jesus on the right, bringing Martinelli on the left, you can move Jesus to the right, or you play Reece Nelson on the right. You've got Emil Smith-Rowe there as well. You've got Fabio Vieira, who came on and played on the right against Sheffield United fairly recently. So there are options there. You do not have to run Bukayo Saka into the ground. So I think it's really important that he does give Saka a bit of a breather on Wednesday night. On Gabriel Martinelli, he was asked whether he was ready to start, and he says he is, because he was ready to play against a really tough opponent just 3 days ago. So he's certainly ready today. Again, we will train today, and we will see the state of every player, and we will make the right decision tomorrow. Yes, Arsenal haven't trained yet. But more by the time you're watching this or listening to this, they might well be training right now. But since the Manchester City game, they haven't been training. They had a recovery day yesterday. Obviously, they've come into Colney this morning. Mikel's done his press conference, and then they're going to go out and do their first session since the City game today. And then a decision will be made on the team after that, or certainly in the morning. That Martinelli, I think, if he's fit, I think you start him. I don't think you leave out Martinelli and Saka tomorrow. I think if one of them you play one of them. And for me, play Martinelli in this game, give Saka a rest and play him on the right. Someone's got in touch here. Who is it? It's SP Douglas. Says, I'm really worried about Saka. He spends the whole game hobbling around and looks like he has no acceleration. Has completely lost any pace he had. He looks like he needs surgery on his Achilles. However, we need him for the running, and we have the Euros over the summer. Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of case of being a very top player. It's very hard to find any time to really rest because you've got so many games. Your manager wants you to play in those games. You always have the international duties to deal with as well because you're a top player. So the international managers want you, as they do with Saka. We see that when he's fit, Southgate tends to play Saka over and over again. And it's just a problem being a very good player. And Mikel talks about it a lot, that if you want to be one of the top players in the world, like, Messi's, Ronaldo's have been, you have to be able to play 60, 65 games a season. But it's easy to say that, but you do also have to be able to be given some time to have a little bit of a rest. And I do think Wednesday's the perfect opportunity for that when it comes to Bukayo Saka anyway. So yeah, but let me know your thoughts on that again by leaving a comment below. Okay, on Jurrien Timber, Mikel has been speaking about Timber, obviously been training for a while now. I remember being at Colney probably about 6 weeks ago, and I asked Arteta if he thought if he was going to play between now and the end of the season, and he said yes, he did. We haven't seen it yet. And he was asked for a little bit of an update on how Timber is doing. He said he's doing very well. He's back training. He's not far off. The thing is, it's that last step now. He hasn't played any minutes, So does he need a game with the under-23s? Does he need 2 games? We are going to have to feel it with him now and how long it is going to take him. The last part, which is tricky, and sometimes it takes a while, but hopefully it's as quick as possible. He was then asked to rate Timber's chances of playing this season. He said, I think he's got a good chance. I don't know the percentage, but he's got a good chance and he's going to push it as far as he possibly can. Well, I mean, he might have a good chance, but there's 9 games to go in the Premier League this season. There's certainly at least 2 more games to go in the Champions League. We hope there's going to be more games than that to go in the Champions League. So time is beginning to tick away with Timber. But as I've always said when I've spoke to him, any sort of game time out of him between now and the end of the season is a bonus for me. As soon as I saw that injury, as soon as it was announced what it was, I just thought next season, that's it for Timber. Because even if he comes back after an injury like that, it takes a long time to get back to your best. So I just think there's just no point taking any risk whatsoever when it comes to Jurrien Timber. If he can come into the team, if he can play between now and the end of the season, he can make an impact, then fantastic. But the most important thing is making sure when he does come back, he is absolutely ready, and then you don't have to rush him into anything. So ideally, maybe get a little bit of game time between now and the end of the season for the under-23s, whatever. Have a really strong pre-season, be ready to go and ready to be fit and firing for the start of next season. But we'll wait and see on Jurrien Timber. I mean, really, if Bukayo Saka is deemed fit for tomorrow night, then Timber's the only player injured at the moment. So that's a really, really strong squad Mikel Arteta has got to deal with going into such a crucial part of the season. That's a really positive sign for him. And it also means you don't have to take any risks with Timber because everyone else is fit. So why risk it? It's as simple as that in my view. So we'll wait and see. But that's the latest when it comes to Jurrien Timber. Everyone else, barring anything we don't know about yet, he's fit. Everyone's fit. And that's a really good thing for Mikel going into such a crucial run of games. Okay, William Saliba and Gabriel have obviously been coming in for a lot of praise, quite rightly, for their performance against Manchester City at the weekend. Not just them, obviously, it's a whole defensive unit. Declan Rice, Yevko Kivior, Ben White, David Raya, whatever. It's a big team unit. And the way Arsenal played at Manchester City at the weekend, it was a proper team performance from everyone, working very, very hard, which you have to do if you're going to get anything out of Manchester City, especially at the Etihad. But those two in particular were so, so good. I loved watching the battle between Gabriel and Erling Haaland, Saliba as well. Saliba got man of the match after the game, came in for lots of praise. But Gabriel absolutely deserves it as well. Mikel was asked during a press conference, when was it you knew that Saliba and Gabriel were going to be a partnership that would work? And he joked initially saying it was when he sent Saliba on loan to Marseille for the season. But then he said, no, only joking. He then said, you just feel it when you see the partnership, and sometimes there is a chemistry between the two players and they complement each other. They are so happy to work with each other and it just flows. I think they really enjoy playing together. And they have been really, really good. I remember they just struck it off like that, Saliba and Gabriel, on that pre-season tour when Saliba came back after his season in Marseille. And you saw immediately in those games over in the USA that they did complement each other, that they did just work so well. The partnership is there. They're both so physically imposing. They're fast. They're good on the ball. It just works, especially in this Mikel Arteta team when it comes to, what he demands from his defenders. The two of them just work. And yeah, I mean, it's fantastic for Arsenal. They're so young as well. Nowhere near their best yet. They're going to continue to improve. And I mean, for Premier League opposition teams and for strikers coming up against them, that must be a scary prospect, that the fact that they're only going to get better, provided they stay injury free. Of course, touch wood, that is what happens. Then they're only going to get better. And for Arsenal, that is just a tantalizing prospect, isn't it? Absolutely tantalizing. When you think that they spent, what is it, just probably about 50 million on the pair of them, 55 million on the pair of them in today's modern prices. What an absolute bargain that is for your centre-back pairing, who could potentially be your centre-back pairing for years to come. I had a question here from Derek. He says, hiya, buddy. G'day from me from Australia. Hi, Derek. Hope all is well over in sunny Oz. Mate, how come Gabriel doesn't get the recognition he deserves? He's the best defender in the league. It's a really interesting one. I think it's because Saliba was such a big talking point before he'd even played for Arsenal. From the moment he signed, the excitement of it all, and then the kind of, I don't know, the mystery of what was going on after that. Why was he being sent out on loan? Why wasn't Mikel Arteta using him? And that just kind of added to the hype around Saliba, really. Everyone was watching what he was doing in France. Every time he had a good game, everyone was looking at it or watching clips of it all. And that added to the mystique of William Saliba. And I don't know if that's what's made it that he continues to kind of dominate most of the headlines, or when people talk about Arsenal's defending, everyone kind of points towards William Saliba. Maybe it was because when he came out of the team last season with the injury, that's when the results started to slide in and the performances started to slide, that everyone's like, he's the most important part. He is the cog that holds Arsenal together. Maybe it's because of that. But for whatever reason, he does get more praise and more spotlight than Gabriel. But Gabriel deserves his flowers 100%. Like you say, there's a very strong argument that this season he's been the best defender in the league. Saliba's been fantastic, but for me, Gabriel's shaded it this season. When it comes to player of the season for Arsenal, there's some big choices to make, whether it's Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard, Gabriel, Saliba. It's going to be a really difficult choice. It'll be very interesting to see who gets a vote from Arsenal fans, but Gabriel is right up there for me. What he does, the physicality he plays with, the quality he has on the ball, the leadership he represents, what he does going forward as well, the threat he offers from set pieces. He's just an all-round top defender, and he's really developing into a leader. And yeah, he might not get the recognition from people outside the Arsenal fan base, Derek, but I think from within the Arsenal fan base who watch him every single week, I think he certainly gets an awful lot of recognition, even if it is just Saliba still just kind of dominating between the two. Okay, moving on to a couple here from Nostradamus and from Azim, who both sort of put forward their teams that they would like to see play against Luton. Nostradamus says Raya in goal, White, Saliba, Gabriel and Zinchenko coming in, Odegaard, Partey and Rice, Trossard, Havertz and Jesus as the front line. He says, hopefully Reiss Nelson gets more game time, ideally around the hour mark for the majority of our games left to play. He is one of the quickest, most direct players and could help drive us onto something special over the coming months. I did have to admit, watching that second half against Manchester City when Saka was going off, I did wonder if Reiss Nelson, that could have been a game for him with the pace to exploit the gaps that were being left in behind. Azim says, hi Charles, the 11 against Luton. I will not start Saka and Nelly against Luton. Certainly 30 minutes for Nelly in the second half. This time, though, I'll give Thomas 60 minutes to gain more fitness and sharpness ahead of Bayern. How do you think of the following 11 against Luton? Raya, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Kivior, Thomas, Odegaard and Rice, Jesus, Havertz and Trossard. Yeah, I think I would go with Nostradamus on this one. I would play Zinchenko at left back. I'm not sure you need Kivior at home to Luton. Arsenal are going to absolutely dominate possession, you would think, in this game. Luton need to be respected, though, 100%. And when you look at how they break, you look at their goal, for example, against Tottenham at the weekend, they did break very quickly down the right. And so Zinchenko will have to be switched on and not push too far forward and leave those gaps in behind that we've seen him leave sometimes. But I still think this is the game to bring Zinchenko back into and give him 60 minutes. Kivior's played a lot of football recently. I agree, absolutely. I'd be playing Thomas Partey in this game. I thought there were some good signs from Thomas. I thought he was rusty still. I thought he certainly needs to improve his pace a little bit, and I think that will come when you're back sharpness. I'm not saying he's slow. I don't think he's lost his pace. I just think when you're not at 100% match sharpness, you just don't have that quick sort of turn and pace, that quick acceleration. He's not the fastest player anyway, but I thought he did look pretty slow off the mark against Man City. But there was some really good signs as well in terms of when he got on the ball and when he pinged it forward, that lovely line splitting pass that he found Odegaard with that led to the Trossard chance. There were some real positives to take from Partey's cameo against Manchester City. And so I'd be playing him in this game 100%. You give Partey 60 minutes, you really start to try to get him up to speed. So I agree with that completely. Interesting. You've both gone with Jesus, Havertz and Trossard as your front line, although you've kind of got Nostradamus has got Trossard on the right and Jesus on the left. It's the other way around for Azim. I would be playing Martinelli in this game. I have to say I'd be starting Martinelli, and then it's kind of take your pick for me. I wouldn't be playing Trossard on the right. I don't like Trossard on the right. So it'd either be Jesus or Reece Nelson for me. I'm going to put some thought into the 11 that I'll do sort of predicted wise for tomorrow. Here's one from Young Smeg Dealer. He says, "Hey Charles, thanks for the regular uploads. Say if we beat Bayern over 2 legs and lost to Man City in the semis and finished second in the league, would it be fair to call the season a failure? I have debated this with my friends and ultimately we landed on that it should be considered a successful season given how competitive the Prem has been this year and the fact that only Gabriel Jesus, Zinchenko and Havertz have proven Champions League experience. I appreciate trophies are the hallmarks of success, but given the average age of the squad and the fact we are competing with Europe's best only serves a positive sign of Arsenal's trajectory over the next 5 years. Would be interesting to hear your thoughts." Yeah, it's an interesting one. I certainly wouldn't call it a failure. If Arsenal finished second, and even if they went out of the Champions League to Bayern now, I certainly wouldn't call it a failure of a season. I wouldn't call it a success by any means, but I certainly think there's been more sign of progress. Whatever happens between now and the end of the season, Arsenal are a better team now than they were last year. I'm utterly convinced of that. Last year was brilliant. It was thrilling. It was an emotional roller coaster. This is a better team. Last season could never have gone and did what Arsenal did this weekend at the Etihad. You know, that performance for me on Sunday showed that this team is ready to win major trophies. I'm not saying it will happen this season. I look at the league table and at the moment I'm thinking it's probably not going to happen in terms of the Premier League. I think Liverpool are certainly ahead of Arsenal when it comes to winning the title this season. Not in terms of quality. I just think in terms of where they are right now, the points they've got and the games they've got coming, they definitely have to be considered favourites. I think for Arsenal to win the league, it's going to be really difficult. They're going to have to win pretty much every single game, I think, between now and the end of the season to win it. They might do that and be fantastic, but I think Arsenal are a better team this season. I think they've progressed massively and they might win the Champions League. We'll have to wait and see. What we saw at the Etihad, that's what the sort of performance they're going to have to produce away from home to win the Champions League between now and the end of the season. But I think for your first year back in the Champions League since 2017 or whatever it is, to get through to the quarterfinals at the very least, I think is acceptable. I would hope they get through Bayern Munich and get to the semi-finals. I think if you reach the semi-finals in your first season back in the Champions League for so long, I think that's definitely been considered a good return to the top level of European football. And if you finish second or third in this sort of title race, it's not something to be celebrated. You know, you want more than that. I think Arsenal will look back if they don't win the title this season. They'll look back at some big mixed opportunities where they should have taken advantage of the games against Fulham, for example, things like that. But I wouldn't call it a failure either. I definitely wouldn't call it a failure because I still think there's been definite progress this season. And that's what you've got to keep building. I think Arsenal will win a major trophy very, very soon. It might not be this season, but I do think they're going to win it. I think they're on the right path. I've seen that this season. I'm convinced of it now, having seen what they are like this season. And if they go and add to that in the summer, then they're only going to get better. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question. I don't think I would consider it a massive success, but I just think I'd consider it progress. I definitely wouldn't consider it as a failure. So thanks for getting in touch for that. And like I said, you want to be involved in tomorrow's show, let me know your thoughts on what Mikel Arteta should do against Luton, how many players he should rotate, how important is it to get the balance right between rotation and keeping players who are in rhythm. Let me know anything you want me to discuss tomorrow. Let me know in the comments below. Until then, everyone, have a fantastic day. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.